Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. But before we leave, we got to respond to some comments. So this was on the interview with Aaron on what was that? The Pink Pill Chronicles episode. Hellbreaker says, Marco, why don't you play a co-op or versus game with them for the mints? I like to hear what they think about the state of modern games too while you're at it, and the identity politics that now affects gaming and gaming communities, and how that impacts them personally being who they are or just their hobbies in general. We need part two. You know, I got into a long debate with, like, when I was setting all this up, I never ended up interviewing them, but we got into a long debate. We were talking about like Bridget and Guilty Gear and shit like that. In retrospect, I'm kind of glad I didn't do that one, because I felt like that individual did not like me. But I'm still in contact with them, so I don't know, and they seem to be interested in doing like follow-ups and shit like that. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get more interactions with our friends Aaron, June, and Nicole. So on the interview with June interview, okay. Funny, I've got a friend doing trans talks at the same time you are. Trans takeover, LOL. And you know, I know the whole trans topic is kind of overdone in general, right? But I just wanted to, you know, hear straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and, you know, have a relaxed, civil, mature conversation about, you know, some of the typical topics pertaining to these issues. And, you know, looking back, it went very well. It went exactly as I thought it should. I think a lot of times when I see people set these things up, they're doing so with malicious intent. They're trying to embarrass somebody. They want to put somebody on the spot, and they want to just prove their point and things like that. And of course, you can disagree with each other, but I think that we were able to have this conversation and keep things civilized and friendly all throughout. And I think that's what I liked about it the most. It kind of shows that, you know, people can come together and have opposing viewpoints on certain things and still talk about it in a you know, a civilized, mature way. You know, and I think that whenever I do interviews with people, that's my goal. I don't want to be like Fresh and Fit, where it's obvious that, you know, they're taking these people just to put them on the spot and embarrass them and make fun of them and make them look stupid and shit like that. That's never my intent. I always try to keep things on a certain level of friendliness. So on the Nicole interview, Dark Wolverine said, seriously, nigga, you couldn't get an actual chick to hang out with you. You know, we were all wondering how you do in real life situation with one. And then BT says, LOL, LMAO even. And Hellbreaker say, that's legit not the point of this at all. It's not. But look, the thing is, I'm actually trying to set up like a few interviews with vagina girls next time. But surprise, surprise, it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder getting in contact with vagina girl. They were friendly, they were eager, they were responsive. That was the cool thing about setting this up. I made a thread looking for some like femcels or feminines from R9K. It got like 50 replies and some girls seem interested, but so far I haven't been able to get any confirmations or anybody that was like, yeah, definitely. Like, I made one thread to find some trans individuals, and I had like 6, 7 interested, just like 6, 7, 8 probably, really. And it was easy. And I'm trying now to, you know, just planning ahead to do like an interview with some girls from 4chan or R9K, but they're just harder to get a hold of, man. They're not as open as our friends Nicole, June, and Aaron were. So on the I'm worried about iDubbbz video, Mark Millie says, iDub showed a lot of maturity in his most recent videos addressing the hate. It's a shame to see so many immature people not recognizing emotional maturity, LOL. And then Ghostface 10 says, emotional maturity, bruh. His wife got him whipped. There's no emotional maturity. It's all ideas drilled into his head by his wife. I'm not the one to use the word beta or cuck too often, but Ian has really become a beta cuck. Now see, the thing is, I'm not upset with him about the maturity addressing the hate. That was never that's not the point of the video. You know, people change, hopefully for the better. But my concern is more so with his relationship. Now, some people like Ghostface are saying that these changes are directed or influenced directly from his wife, which is one thing. Now, if it's internal, cool. But again, that's not even the point that I was trying to make. When I look at him and I see his relationship, that's what worries me. You know, if he wants to renounce his earlier content and his earlier views, look, cool. I don't give a fuck. But when I see somebody in I'm not gonna say like a toxic relationship, because it doesn't seem to be like overtly toxic, but it has a lot of the underlying signs of a relationship where the woman is running things and is going to lead the man to his eventual ruin. As Rollo Tomasi would say, death by 1,000 concessions. You know, and that's what I see when I look at them. That's what the worry is about. You know, bravo for his maturity, bravo for his growth, but we have way too many guys who are becoming successful content creators and then getting tangled up with the wrong type of women because they don't have an understanding of these dynamics. They don't know what the red flags look like. They just get so wrapped up in the first piece of good pussy that they can get, and they don't understand that it's based on their clout. It's based on their status and their money, not who they are. And so guys like that are easily controlled by women who are more savvy and know exactly what it is that they're doing to them. So in the same video, haha, what a story mark says, not only did she not take his last name, he took her last name. Destined to fail sooner in a few years, she takes half his assets. Same old story. That's where I'm putting my money. And that's what the whole video is about. You know, is that this, to me, this is a real issue because, you know, I'm a guy who wants to be a successful content creator someday. And I look at these guys who make it, these guys who are successes, and I see a lot of them fall into the same old trap. You know, these guys are obviously betas. And I say that with all due respect. You know, I'm not saying it like you're a bitch or that you're not a man of integrity and character. But when I say beta, it's, you know, a lot of these guys are simply the type that were never very successful with women up until the point where they found success financially and were able to elevate their status to a whole different level. And guys like that are prime targets for pretty girls and Beckys and whatnot, because they are able to take advantage of the fact that these guys aren't used to having the quality of girl as they are. And so they sort of get, you know, almost like charmed, you know, like the charm spell in a video game like Persona or something, and they get the hearts in their eyes, and you know, they can't really see reality for what it is. And I think that, you know, I hate to say it, but guys in his position have to be a bit more guarded with the women that they deal with, and they got to be conscientious of potential predators. Fumi says in the same video, I know that feel. I hear people tell me I'm attractive and still don't believe them because of how it was for my whole life, and still is really like. And we just talked about that, you know, and the TOD and the whole choosing single thing. You know, you get to a point where you start to kind of grow into your body. Maybe you get fit, maybe you start eating better or something. And despite the physical changes, mentally, you still feel like that unattractive guy. Like, I know right now, like, I mean, I got quite the gym physique at the moment. You know, I mean, I'm looking a little bloated because I ate some cake. I ate some cake and tendies earlier, but man, other than that, woo. But again, mentally, I still feel like the weird guy that girls don't like. And so on the Shy comic, Hellbreaker says, people will try to manipulate their way through all forms of talking points to get you to do what they want you to, not because it's altruistic or right for everyone. And the more I live, the more I notice how petty this can get. People who care about the right thing are a rare breed. Most of the time, a fear response to relate it to their personal gratification, mostly in relation for the present moment. And then it's either rationalized for their audience and or for their moral play pretend they have inside their head. And see, I look at this point here. People try to manipulate their way through all forms of talking points to get you to do what they want you to do, not because it's altruistic or right for everyone. And I see that a lot. Because, you know, with me, I always try to shy away from being seen as like an advice giver. I like to just look at certain dynamics and things and just express how I feel about them or give a unique take on it. Like, kind of like I put out the video, I'm voting for Donald Trump, right? And see, I presented my points as to why, and it is what it is. I didn't say, oh, you guys vote for Donald Trump. Like, I'm not trying to sway or convince other people. I'm just telling you how I feel. But I'm not trying to control or dictate what you guys do with your vote or how you feel, things like that. You know, I'm just expressing myself. And I see a lot of like different debates and arguments online and the manosphere and things like that. And it's obvious that some guys just have a strong attachment to their position. Like, and to me sometimes, and I get it, but I just think, just like Hellbreaker is saying here, you know, it seems like they're trying way too hard to get you to align yourself with their belief system. You know, I can live with presenting what I believe and then you guys not necessarily agreeing with it or deciding to take a different approach or something like that. Kind of like when I did the video about who should pay on the first date. You know, I talked about why I don't think it makes sense for a guy to pay on the first date. But if you want to use that strategy, I'm not gonna jump on your head about it. But yeah, I think that, you know, sometimes people just are desperate to find a way to get people to, you know, basically align themselves with their way of thinking, as opposed to just accepting that, you know, I have my own way, they have theirs. Kind of like what somebody told me before. They said, what I like about you, Chad Marco, is that you're a live and let live motherfucker. And that's so true. And so Red Z05 FB says on the Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford fight video, being a fan of both fighters, I wanted to see a classic back and forth, but instead we got a complete annihilation. If a rematch happens at 154, EJ better be on some next level shit, because it was depressing seeing him get worked up like that. He got his ass whooped. He got his ass beat. And just recently they activated the rematch clause. So the fight is definitely going to happen. Now I think that Bud Crawford wins again. I just don't think there's enough time between the first fight and the second, if it goes as planned, because Errol wants to fight again by the end of the year, which I said in the video, I don't think that's a good idea. Oh, excuse me. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that if Errol was to have any chance, what I would suggest if I was in his camp would be to first rest, look at the match, figure out what you were doing wrong. And really the thing is, what a lot of people pointed out was that Errol Spence doesn't have great defense. And he's always dependent on sort of bullying and taking advantage of his size and strength to overwhelm his opponents with pressure. And that's just not going to work on Terrence, because Terrence is just straight up, he's a better boxer and he's stronger than Errol. So Errol can't bully him in any way, shape, or form. So it seems like the thing of note in terms of what he's lacking that he needs to beat Crawford is better defense. But the thing about that, it can be difficult to teach an old dog new tricks, but he can learn. You can make adjustments. But the thing is, it's going to be hard to try to learn these things and whatnot in your camp and then apply them in your next fight, the big fight, the fight. It's kind of like in the anime Ashita Nojo, when Rikishi was preparing to fight Joe Yabuki. Rikishi was Joe's first rival. Rikishi, one, had to lose a lot of weight, and so he was just, oh man, he was like a skeleton basically. So one, he had to get used to fighting at a lower weight, but he also had developed a plan to beat Joe Yabuki, which was to use basically the uppercut. Like he was working on perfecting his uppercut to counter Joe Yabuki. So before he had the big fight with Joe Yabuki, he had a in-between fight where, one, he got used to the new weight, and two, he was able to try to implement his new uppercut attack into his offense in a real fight. Then he fought Joe Yabuki. Even in an anime, you see how it's supposed to be done. So what I'm saying is, long story short, Errol needs to take this time to learn some new tricks, maybe defense, offense, whatever the case may be. But he needs a fight in between to make sure that he can actually implement these strategies when it matters most. So on the Solitude video, Eric Williams says, we had an aux and smoke session in the car and I was feeling the vibe. I started out slow, played oldies like Marvin Gaye, Al Green, Sade, The Five Heartbeats. Then I slid some old Japanese city pop up their ass crack, and before they even noticed, and they were actually vibing to it. Keep in mind, these are what you would call stereotypical hood ninjas, so these aren't the most open-minded people, LOL. I get what you mean by having to enjoy certain stuff on your own, especially the nerdy, obscure stuff, but sometimes people can surprise if you give them a chance, as long as the timing is right. Let's get that robot R9K3, my boy. And you know what? He's right. You know, sometimes people will be feeling what you play or what you bring up that they might not have been expecting. I can give you, look, I'll give you two examples. One where it worked, one where it didn't. And I know, like, in terms of music, I played like some old like disco or something like that, and my friend like just playing, but they already know how I get down, so I'm sure he wasn't surprised that I started playing this shit. We were in my room anyway, and he liked it. It was like he was vibing to the shit, right? But let me tell you another story, right? Now you guys know I like old Italian horror movies. And this, honestly, this was fucked up. This was fucked up what they did. I don't even hang with these guys no more, but because this was fucked up. But I met up with a friend and his cousin, and we were like, "Yo, let's have like a horror movie night." And so they picked the movie, and then I picked the movie, and I think they picked The Skeleton Key. I think that's what it's called. And you know, a solid horror movie or whatnot, cool. And so my pick was The Psychic, which is like an old 70s Italian horror movie. And it's one of those movies where it's a slow build up, right? It's old and it's a slow build up before things get going, right? And I remember we got like 15 minutes into the movie and I could tell like they started texting each other. I can only imagine what they were saying, but I would imagine it was, there's no way I'm gonna sit here and watch. It had to be something like that. But basically after 15 minutes, they made up some excuse that they had to leave early. But you know me, I'm not retarded. So I could just read the vibe and tell that, you know, they weren't trying to sit through some boring old Italian horror movie, right? And you know what? I wasn't bothered by it. Fine, I get it. But that's an example of why I love Solitude so much. Because if I could only watch and do things according to what somebody else has to enjoy, I wouldn't be able to enjoy the things that I like. I would have never seen that movie if I had to base watching it on, okay, we all got to do this together. I was only able to, and that's one of my favorite horror movies. I love that movie. But again, how many of my homies are gonna really, you know, sit and chill? And I'll say this too, this happened recently. So I met up with one of my old friends, I think it was Friday night. And I was like, yo, let's play Resident Evil 5. You know, like old times. Cause we had beaten it when we were like years ago, right? And he was like, yeah, cool. So he came over and I set everything up and all that. And we were playing. This dude is on his phone in the middle of we're playing Resident Evil 5 on veteran mode, right? And this guy would take any chance to check his phone. And I'm not sure, but I think he was probably texting his baby mama or some shit like that. And you know, again, I get it. I'm not bothered by it because I know that when I want to do something and I want to do it the right way, I'm going to have to do it by myself. Because most of the people that I know or have known, it's hard to get them to do anything, damn near anything, and that I want to do, and actually focus in on it. You know, and so that's just all I'm talking about when I made that video. It's just that, you know, that's why I love Solitude so much, because I don't got to worry about dealing with other people and whether or not they like or they're engaged in what I'm doing. I can just focus on it and I can enjoy it right by my motherfucking self. And so haha, what Story Mart says on the same video, I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of the time. To be in company, even with the best, is soon wearisome and dissipating. I love to be alone. I never found a companion that was so companionable as Solitude. Henry David Thoreau Walden. I probably fucked up that third name. You should read the book Walden. It's a bit hard to read, but I recommend it. Reading it changed my life when I was younger. But obviously, I relate to this quote. I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of the time. To be in company, even with the best, is soon wearisome and dissipating. I love to be alone. I never found a companion that was so companionable as, and I feel the exact same way. And I love people. I always say this. I love people. You know, you get it. Being around people is a different vibe, especially when you're on the same page. You know, it's kind of like when I go to the gym. When there's people there, every now and then you have a positive interaction with other enthusiastic gym goers. Sometimes you see the attractive young ladies and their, you know, I mean, let's be honest, they're sexy little gym outfits and things like, you know, those are the positives of being around people. Just seeing people work hard and, you know, it's motivating. But then you got people getting in the way, using the machines that you want to use, and then, you know, just taking up space and shit like that. Like, the best time at the gym for me is just the least amount of people in there, because that's when I can really just lose myself. That's the easiest way to lose myself. But that's just one example, though. I love people, but I have to have alone time. I have, like, to me, solitude is as much of a necessity as socializing, and solitude is definitely preferable. So Chad Peel says on the Shy comic, vulnerable narcissism is a very well documented phenomenon. Yeah, look, the point of that video, I'm not saying that it's not a real thing, right? I'm saying that, you know, in it, amongst several points I made in that long video, you know, one of the main things that I wanted to point out, though, was that the way that kid used ego and vanity to shame the other kid for his inaction, when if it was ego and vanity that caused him to act, he would have never said anything. So why are you calling him out for ego and vanity when you wouldn't do it if he was doing what you wanted? See, I'm always trying to get to the bottom of the psychology and the mentality behind why we do what we do. And so the issue isn't even what he brought up. It's not about his ego. It's not about his vanity. It's not about narcissism. It's about the fact that you're not doing what I want you to do, because you can have all the narcissism in the world as long as you're doing what I want you to do. That's one of the main problems that I have with that comic. So Antog something says on the good dating advice from ADV, those guys' attitude is as if life's some video game. I lost weight, I have a job, where the fuck is my girlfriend? Bro, they don't ask us out. It's our dirty duty, I'm assuming, and very often ungrateful work. Unfortunately, install Tinder, ask in person, do something about it. After at least a few dozens of rejections, then ask for advice. Yeah, you know, I've always said, he said it's our dirty and very often ungrateful work, unfortunately, and it is. You know, the fact is, most of the time, it's gonna be left on our shoulders to do the approaching, to do the asking out and things like that. It's just simply unrealistic to expect. Excuse me, I'm sorry. It's just simply unrealistic to expect women to approach you first. And he says, install Tinder, ask in person. After at least a few dozens of rejections, then ask for advice. Well, I think you could ask for advice before that. You probably should. Before you start just talking to girls randomly and shit like that, you probably need some sort of strategy and game plan. But I see what he's saying, though, is that, and you know, people got mad at me for making this thread one time. I made a thread on R9K where I was talking about how, like, you ever notice that most adult virgins never put much effort into trying to date and ask out girls, right? And I got a lot of shit for that within that thread, but I was just making a innocent observation. You know, I wasn't trying to shit on anybody, but I think it's absolutely true that a lot of guys who are virgins and are struggling in dating, I think there are a lot who really have not put in any sort of like significant effort. And it's like, it's kind of hard to really be sympathetic towards somebody when it comes to dating, when they haven't really put in any sort of like foundational work to know where they stand. You know, you're doing all this whining and complaining and asking questions but you haven't even asked out 3 girls in your entire fucking life. Maybe start there. But I'm not a whiner. I'm not a complainer. So this doesn't apply to me because I don't complain about the shit. I know what it is. So DG1NR8 says on the same video, dating advice, 4chan. I guess disappointed face. And then Chapio says, get dating advice from Reddit instead, LMAO. And then Meme Star says, Normie, I stand by the advice in that thread though. I think that guy was spitting. I think he took a very good approach to this kind of advice that he was giving. I know that it's 4chan, but even 4chan has its gems. And I think, and if I was gonna stand up and say it's time for me to start getting pussy, I would definitely incorporate some of these strategies and advice that guy was giving in that thread. So Bobby Biro says on the HPV related cancers on the rise snippet, you really think a girl will let you test her for STDs before sex? Hookup culture involves impulsive, lustful, heat of the moment sex. You will not get the opportunity to ask more often not, and even if you do, she will turn you down. A majority of the time, it's not worth the 10 to 20 minutes of fun. And Bobby is absolutely correct. One of the reasons why I believe I'm going to be a virgin for a long time is exactly this. There's no way in hell I'm having sex with anybody. I don't care if she claims to be a virgin. I'm not. You know what's funny? Someone on 4chan told this story about how they got herpes or something. They said they got it from a girl who claimed to be a virgin or some shit like that. So hell no. I don't care, man. I don't care if you're a nun. I don't care if you're a virgin or born again virgin. We gotta get tested. And me too. Like, even though I'm a virgin, I would say don't take my word for it. Like, let's get tested together. Like, are you really willing to gamble on your health and catch an incurable disease that you have to live with for the rest of your life for bad sex with me? Me and my little dick? You really like that, you stupid bitch? But the thing is, like Bobby says, hookup culture is impulsive and lustful. It's so fast. Who the hell is trying to stop to get tested just to have sex with somebody? Now certainly some people would, but I think that's definitely the minority. I think it's one of those things that it's really, people don't want to think about it. And I think that's the unfortunate thing about it. It's just people prioritize their fun over their health. And I don't want to be like that. I always tell myself, Marco, if you ever meet a girl and things are escalating, please do the right thing. Insist that you both get tested. And to me, like, I'ma always stand on that. I hope that if ever I find myself in that situation, I do the right thing. Because it's the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do. It's the healthy thing to do, but it's not what most people want to hear, but that's just the reality of it. And again, I always keep that in mind. If I ever get that opportunity, never forget, you have to insist that you get tested. But again, like, the reason why it's so hard is that part of like that's an investment move to go get tested together, because getting tested, it costs, you got to go to the hospital or the clinic, wherever they do the test at. It costs money. You gotta wait for the results. Like, it's an investment, and so you're doing all that for the potential of sex that you haven't even had yet. So you don't even know if the person is good in bed. Like, it's so much when people just want to get it out the way. I just want to know Can she back that thing up on a real nigga? You know, she just want to know if you got that big dick thug nigga sex, and to have to go through all of that just to figure that out. I can completely understand why people don't want to, but it's the right thing to do. So on the fuck my wife, Adam22 failed the biggest shit test of his life video. 1-800 said his wife was literally making fun of him the whole interview. There was a part where he said, if you keep acting like that, I'm gonna have to Lil Kelpie you. I told you, man. Like, you can't. I'm sorry, bro. A girl cannot respect a man that allows other men to have. It's just not gonna work. And it's just like that dude said, you don't have to do that, Adam. You don't have to. You know what's funny? Whenever I see Adam22 now, when I see his no jumper shit on my X feed, I just think back to this shit. And I'm like, I can't even take this guy seriously as a figure in hip hop. Like I just can't even take him seriously anymore. Eric Williams says Adams22's marriage is not gonna make it. Agreed. I think in these times, I mean, whose marriage is safe? But damn, it's only a matter of time. Cunning Guitars 733 says, I think a fair point is that it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside, having money, beautiful wife, nice home, good car, etc. People fixate on how a person appears to look like on the outside whilst not focusing on what they might be feeling on the inside. I think that's a good point. I would have never expected Adam22 to do something like this. I always saw him as kind of a pimp, you know? And, you know, but I guess the reality is you look past the tattoos and the rubbing elbows with all the rappers and things like that. When it comes right down to it, he's a cuck. He's a cuck, and probably blue-pilled because he got married. Right? I mean, that's a sign in of itself of a man that's I hate to say it, but that's a sign in of itself of a man that probably hasn't done enough research on marriage statistics and things like that. But you know, it is what it is. And so on the same video, No Scope Johnson 6 says, I think people are focusing in the wrong areas of the drama. The Hodge twins once said that they experienced situations in which a woman would break up with a shredded guy for a fat dude. It's also pretty common for a woman to leave a large member for a little one given the right circumstances. Dick is useful for limited situations. The dick part is a factor, but isn't as major as status, height, face, wealth, etc. So Adam22 has universally more appeal than a dude with a huge dong. The problem is that Adam22 is a subhuman cuck. That's the issue. Your own woman is washing her lips with another man's balls. There is no coming back from that. There is no saving face. This is reflective of his already trashy character, and no amount of wealth and success can overcome this bomb to his value as a man. Absolutely, though. You know, I can say he's a subhuman, but he's a cuck. He's a cuck, and that's the biggest issue here. You know, is that he's allowed something that he really he didn't have to allow, and you know, it's going to, I believe, eventually bite him in the ass in terms of his relationship later down the line, in terms of the stability of it and her respect for him. But it's kind of funny, like, now looking back, enough time has passed to where this is kind of old news, and it's just like, damn, what was it even all worth it? Like what? You know, like, I know some people are talking like maybe he got like some sort of like financial gain out of it, but I'm just like really, after all that, what, like, I'm left with this profound sense that there's no way he feels good about this now that it's all over. He has to be feeling like unless he's just true to the cuck life to the core, you know, he has to be feeling like, damn, like that just wasn't worth it at all. Okay, so that was